So I want to quickly cover a few things about the AllReady mobile application. I have it pulled up here in Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition. I got 15.4.1, which is the latest version as of the time of this recording. A few things I want to point out. One, the dependencies, these are NPM dependencies, have already been installed. So they're already restored in Visual Studio. If you see the word restoring next to the dependencies node in Solution Explorer, let it finish. It'll install all of these NPM dependencies. Once that's done, then you can continue. The second thing I want to point out is the Task Runner Explorer. This is running NPM. This is running NPM scripts that are found in the package JSON. So I'm going to open up the package JSON. You can see the script section here. There's clean and build and lint. And one of them is watch, and it just associates a word with a script to run. And so, in order to run these scripts, I have to use the Task Runner Explorer down here in Visual Studio. If you don't see these steps in your Task Runner Explorer, it's because you don't have one of the reasons, probably the primary reason, is that you don't have the NPM Task Runner extension from Mads Christensen installed. If you don't see this extension installed in your Visual Studio, you need to install it. That will enable you to see these NPM package scripts inside of your Task Runner Explorer. The watch script is bound to a Visual Studio event called Project Open. So when this project gets opened, it kicks off this watch window. In fact, I'm going to double click on it. No, in fact, I'm going to exit out of the program and come back in just to show you what it looks like. I'll close that solution, come back into it. And then in Task Runner Explorer, if I can bring it up real quickly without me having clicked anything, it loaded the NPM packages and started the watch script running. And the watch script is just looking for files that have changed in your source code. It'll find files that you've changed, and on the fly, it'll rebuild the application. In fact, let's give it a shot. I'm going to go into the source directory, into Pages, and under Events. I'm going to open up the Events HTML. I'm also going to pin the Task Runner Explorer window so we can see it change. So this is where it's at right now. It's at 10:02:23. I'm going to go up to a title, and I'm just going to change something meaningless, and I'm going to click Save. And you can see it added a few lines, almost immediately, of rebuilding the application. I'll just change it back, and you can watch the task window run again. This has to be running in order to detect changes in your source code and recompile the application on the fly. That's helpful when you're debugging. So I'm going to run the application in simulator and an emulator type setting. And I want to go through the application, but what I really want to show you is if I go into the Solution Explorer again and change a file, I'm going to change that to Events 3 this time. I'm going to click Save. It did not change it in the application, so it didn't automatically refresh. So I do have to click Refresh. But the only reason why it allowed me to click refresh and see the update is because that watch window in the NPM Task Runner it was running. Without that running, it would have not seen that change or detected that change, and when I clicked refresh, I would have not seen any difference. I do know if you go into one of the screens and if you change a different page, if I click Save, it does still also does not automatically refresh the browser window. So regardless, I think the thing that was important was you've got to have that task window running, that watch window, npm watch running, and you have to have the dependencies installed in order to run the application. So this is the application running. This is just the new one. I have changed a little bit more of the design since my last video. This is just one event that happens to be out in the dev environment on our dev server, on our dev deployment. I'm pulling from the dev APIs to pull this information. And under here you can still do login, and I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but we'll try it. And I'm going to click login. And as long as I successfully saved that, got that password, I'm going to not see that login anymore, and I'm going to have a log out. A lot of these are just doing what the old application did. I tried not to make too much new functionality. I just wanted to port it to Ionic, the latest version of Ionic, so that we could maintain it faster and easier. If you click on Learn More, or if you click on Volunteer, you're still taken to the same page. It shows you the list of tasks that you could sign up for. These sign up buttons, they take you to the mobile application. So I think on my first video I showed you, if you haven't watched that, you should. It just brings us to our mobile application. The user would actually have to go back, log in on the mobile app, the web app, the mobile web browser app, in order to sign up for those tasks. I'm going to go back one. The other thing is, if you volunteer, or if you check, or if you do more information, you have this check into the event. And this does call the API, which doesn't return very much meaningful information, but you can call the check-in page and get successfully checked into the event. I don't know exactly what this is doing on the back end. I'm just calling the one of the pages, one of the APIs to check in. I don't get really any meaningful information back, so I'm not sure what it really does. But since that functionality was sort of in the last one, I ported that functionality into here. We could certainly make this a little prettier. The hours, this was on the old application, the Ionic 1 application. I don't know what its purpose was, but it wasn't persisting anything. It was just act like a stopwatch. And so I'm just putting that in there. I just put that in there, back in there. I'm not for sure what purpose it would serve, or how we want to maybe embellish it, or add on to it, or extend it to make it more purposeful or meaningful. But that is still there. Settings isn't doing much, or isn't doing anything. I do want to continue working on this project, so I kind of see some vision stuff that we might put in here. Login page. I think because I refreshed, I got logged out. Nothing. The login isn't persistent on the old application. It's not persistent on this new one. Might be some of the things I start to now be able to. Now that we're in kind of this new modern Ionic 3 Angular 4 world with our application, it might be faster and easier to add on or maintain the application. But I just wanted to kind of show you what the new application was looking like. There is a pull request out there now that's basically porting all of our Ionic 1 application to this Ionic 3 application, which is using Angular 4. The Solution Explorer window, there's not much to it from the last time of our video. Everything that gets in the www folder is basically rebuilt every time the application gets compiled. In fact, I think if I go to the Task Runner Explorer and I stop the running, I click OK, and I just highlight all these guys and I delete them. Okay, so now it removed everything from the www folder. It took a little while, but it removed everything from the www folder. And now I'm going to double click the watch, which is, like I said, it rebuilds the application. And we should start to see the www folder now start to get populated with things as soon as Visual Studio decides to respond. You can see that it rebuilt the application in the www folder. Now, inside of Visual Studio, there's a lot of kind of linking up what is traditional CLI, command line interface kind of things, I would be running this command, npm run watch, manually from a command prompt window or from a shell. I would be running Ionic app scripts and Ionic serve and trying to get Visual Studio to link to those very specific Ionic things. Sometimes difficult to stay up with Ionic. I think a more easier approach, or maybe long-term approach, maybe to switch to Visual Studio Code for this project, possibly use Xamarin for long term. Maybe just rewrite this whole thing in Xamarin, or maybe just use the mobile. I call it the web app in just a mobile browser window view. Lots of things to consider there, but the purpose of this pull request and this issue was to try to get it out of Ionic 1 and into Ionic 3.